jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
Got an exclusive interview with comedian, San Francisco SketchFest co-founder Cole Stratton. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Anytime. So, what current projects are you up to this year, post-COVID?
Are we post-COVID? I like to think we are. Starting to be, at least. Yeah, right? Well, just trying to, stay busy. We obviously had to postpone our festival that was supposed to be this past January. We thought we were going to be able to do it, but then the variant came that everybody in the world got pretty much, so we had to push till next January. So we were working on that most of the year, and then all of a sudden that got waylaid. So other than that, like I live in Los Angeles full time, so I do a lot of shows down here, and things just kind of started reopening the theaters and things too. So I'm doing a lot of improv and sketch shows and things like that. And then working on various other little projects here and there that just haven't come to fruition yet. But just, kind of staying active as everything opens back up.
Very neat, very neat. Have you been tempted to revisit some other podcasts or blogging or acting, or is that still side stuff?
I mean, I am doing a little bit of acting here and there. I'm auditioning and stuff, and I've been getting a couple bits here and there. I was on the season premiere of this season's American Crime Story, the one about Clinton impeachment. I'm in the first episode, which just dropped on Hulu, so you can see me as a kind of a shithead reporter.
Nice.
At the Paula Jones press conference. So yeah, things are starting to kind of go back to normal there too, though they it's still pretty much not in-person auditions. It's a lot of sending in self-tapes and stuff, and occasionally doing like some callbacks over Zoom and stuff. But for the most part, it's just sending in tapes when you get the audition requests, which is, kind of nice because I don't have to go anywhere versus trying to get across town like on a Friday at 5 or something. And so that's a lot nicer. Podcast-wise, like, I don't know. Like my podcast, Pop My Culture, ended...
Right.
Back in, I don't know, a while ago. 2017. Which shouldn't be that long ago, but that was like 5 years. But, we ran that for 7 years and stuff. So, and it was a lot of fun and I loved it, but, it was a lot of work, and, we had a guest every episode. So rounding up guests was always, a thing. It was fairly easy at times, but sometimes it was just like, oh gosh, we got to record in 2 days. We don't have anybody yet. What are we going to do? So that was great, and I loved it. And then I was kind of like, okay, cool. Now I can be on a break from it for a while. And I've thought about getting back into it. I've had several ideas and things too, but just not enough to like light the fire under me as of yet. But I'm sure I will get back into it. It's just one of the things I love doing. It's just been nice to not have it for a little while. And then obviously, like, when I was starting to kind of get ready to get back into that arena, the pandemic hit, and then that kind of waylaid that as well too. So now that things are starting to be creative again, I'm, looking at ideas and stuff and trying to figure out what sings to me and go from there.
Nice. And just giving, building on that earlier point, since everyone's using Zoom now, do you think you'll just be able to assemble a lot of stuff a little more quicker as a result of doing this, not having to travel?
Yeah. I mean, Zoom is definitely good for a lot of things. It still isn't quite, it's not the same as being in the room together. It's just not.
No.
It's, it's not bad, and you can connect and stuff, but there's some kind of magic of, back when we did Pop My Culture, of having me and Vanessa and then whoever our guests were in the same room together, riffing off of each other, and there's no delay. It's, just really nice to have that energy, and you can't really get that over Zoom. It really affected improv and stuff. We did some virtual improv shows and stuff with our teams when this was just first starting out, and people were into it for like a month, and then they were like, this isn't really fun. And
Gotcha.
People, the viewership's kind of dropped off because there's just really no substitute for something like that. But for podcasts and things in general, I mean, you could do a lot of that via Zoom, and I don't think that will necessarily change, at least not for a while, because it's a little easier to get people to do your stuff if they can just go into their office and click on a keypad instead of trying to, meet you someplace at a certain time. So
right.
I don't see that changing a ton. But, who knows? At some point, this could all open back up again. I mean, already now in LA, they're starting to lift a lot of restrictions, and it sort of feels like the before days in a lot of ways when you go places and nobody's wearing a mask and stuff. So we'll see where that heads. I feel like we're kind of in an endemic time where it's always going to kind of be around. And just, depends on what variants we get and how, tough they are to avoid and things like that too. But I feel like we're kind of in a place now where it's going to be kind of this from now on.
Totally. Adjustments are not easy. Do you have any other projects with Janet Varney or Riff Tracks coming up soon?
Yeah, sort of. Janet and I, we do our whole Riff Tracks Present stuff where we mostly do like 80s movies, occasional 90s movies. And we have one that we've been working on. It's just we got kind of, obviously when SketchFest got busy and then waylaid, we kind of had to drop it for now. But we've been working on it. And at some point, we'll finish it and get it recorded and out there. I can't say what the title is, but I will say it's right in our wheelhouse of what we're expected to be doing. So it's another piece of 80s wonderfulness.
I hear you. Okay. Do you ever get recognized still on the street for various commercials or even, TV appearances? Like you were on Nash Bridges twice, and I grew up watching the Animal Planet movie, The Retrievers, believe it or not.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Actually, it was pretty fun because, I got to work with Betty White and stuff.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, that was pretty great. And she just would tell Golden Girls stories unsolicited. It was pretty wonderful. Evidently, Estelle Getty wanted the set really hot, but B. Arthur wanted it really cold, so they were constantly fighting over the thermostat. Like every 45 minutes, a poor PA would have to go and change the temperature in the room.
Sounds like a party.
Yep, pretty much. But yeah, that's the fun thing about things like that is, you just get to work with great people and, have fun even if the project's kind of ridiculous. I'd say I mostly get recognized for my festival stuff because anybody who is in comedy and sketch or improv or stand up and stuff kind of they know about the festival and they know about me for the most part. So I do get, recognized from that, which is weird.
The DVDs sold pretty well.
Yeah, a little bit here and there. But yeah, from the TV and stuff work, not so much. I did get recognized for my podcast from time to time too. There was
nice.
We were at Disneyland actually in Anaheim at the eating at a restaurant in downtown Disney, and the bartender there knew who I was, which was bizarre. Because something in podcasts, people don't necessarily know your face. So, but he was a fan of the podcast, so that was fun.
You think Never Not Funny and Alchemy guest spots helped?
Maybe. I mean, I think Alchemy has been fun because I've been basically the de facto sub-host whenever Kevin's not there. And then I guess sometimes as well. So I've done like 50 or 60 episodes of it, I think, at this point. So I kind of feel like that's kind of been my way back into podcasting during all this. And obviously I like to guest on stuff when I can. Never Not Funny was a lot of fun.
So. Don't got to worry about the engineering or editing. You just got to
you just kind of show up and do whatever the thing is, and then it's their problem, so to speak. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of fun podcasts out there and stuff, and it would be fun to get back and start doing some more.
So in addition to just the various plans and everything, you think Audible might be revisited again?
I'm not sure. Audible's changed their business model like 74 times at this point.
Oh, dear.
It's like they wanted like short form kind of things that were like quick, like 20-minute nugget stuff. And then they wanted like 10-hour things. And I think that they just keep adapting to whatever they feel like is going to sell in the marketplace. But
trying to predict success.
Right, exactly. We had our little run with the Bat episodes that we did. They were pretty fun. That we, improv in the dark. And then, they were sponsors of the festival for a couple of years too. So that's kind of I came to them with the Bat as an idea of just for a live show to do at the festival that they could be part of, and then they decided to develop it as a series with me and Janet and a bunch of guest improvisers. So that was really fun.
Sweet.
Yeah. I don't really know what's next in terms of things are just starting to wake up, so to speak. The bear's coming out of hibernation here creatively. Now it's trying to figure out what the thing is that's going to, be the thing that I latch onto. But I do find myself busy again with a lot of, things on my plate, so to speak, and projects in development. Just nothing has really gone to that next level yet where it's ready to go out to the world. But there are things in the works.
Very cool. Who would, just backtracking a little slightly, who would you describe as kind of your mentor in the world of comedy? Was it Second City or was it Groundlings? Because you had a bunch of those who you worked with.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I was a kid of HBO, so I was really into movies and comedy and TV stuff too. So I would say in terms of my humor and comedy and stuff and wanting to go that direction, obviously my dad introduced me to a lot of comedy films and directors and things early on, so I was always kind of funny. And then I started doing improv really early. I think I took a class in Sacramento called Improv for Teens or whatever. And it just hooked me. I was oh, this is fun and I'm good at this. And then I just kind of became the improv guy, so to speak, and was the one who would teach improv games to our drama classes and stuff. And my high school had an improv team thing that went way back to the 50s. So I was on that, and then I started one in college and just have been doing it ever since in some capacity. But in terms of actual mentors, my comedy heroes have always been Albert Brooks, who I love. I just find his stuff super funny. The Kids in the Hall were huge for me, which was always a goal for us when we founded the festival, because we were all fans of them, and we actually were in a sketch team together called Totally False People, which we pulled from a sentence in a Kids in the Hall tour program. We had all gone to the 2000 tour, and there was a thing in a bio that said rumors that he was gay, totally false, people, led Mark to blah 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 or something like that. So we thought totally false people, that's fun because we were putting on characters. So we pulled that from that, and then early on we got Bruce McCullough to come and do a solo show in year 4 or 5 of the festival, and then we got Scott then to do his thing, and then Kevin came and did some stuff, and then finally we just got them all and did big tribute to them in a live sketch show, and they have always been a staple at the festival ever since, either as a group or individually based on what their schedules are like. So that was always surreal for me. There was definitely a night when we had all of them, and we went to an after party and their big suite and stuff, and hanging out with them, and I was like, how did this happen? These guys are my heroes, and now they're my friends, and that's always what's the most surreal thing about the festival to me is just it's afforded me the chance to work with and book and hang out with a lot of my comedy heroes and acting heroes and celebrities and things too. And we've gotten to see a lot of people, come into the festival early when they were just starting out and then become superstars from there. So that's always been super cool. But I definitely, Kids in the Hall for sketch, Mr. Show. I love Bob and David. Mel Brooks, Albert Brooks.
We're at one of your shows.
Yeah. So it's always been super cool. I love all those guys.
I'm building on that a bit. I have noticed that also, just with interviewing people, is simply ask. And it seems there's just many people is they just nerd out. They just want to creep everyone out or just be overbearing. And it's no. Would you be reacting to that if some stranger came up to you and just started hugging you or just obsessing over you? Just treat them like a real person.
Yeah, I mean that's
Why
the thing
is a foreign concept.
the luster kind of wears off in a weird way. It's you realize it's just their people. Once you start, I used to get starstruck pretty easily. Now I really don't, because we've had so many amazing people of pretty big fame levels come in and do the festival. And then a lot of them have done my, podcast or whatever else. Lorraine Newman's a big influence on me too. She's actually my neighbor, and we've become very close. And she came and saw me do an improv show at the festival when she was there doing something else, and then thought I was really great, and then kind of started talking. And now, she's one of my best friends in a sense, and it's great that she's an icon. SNL was huge for me growing up. I definitely had all the VHS tapes of the best ofs and watched them all whenever they were on. And back when there was water cooler talk, we'd always talk about the episodes, Monday after the things. And so she's been huge for me too.
That's really cool. Are there any other people whose brains you picked that you would contribute probably a lot of your collaborations to?
I mean, obviously Janet and I have been working together forever. She was in my sketch group, and then obviously we founded the festival from there. So, she was a big collaborator for me early on. I don't know. There's always been people that, we finally got Carol Burnett to the festival. That was huge. I love her. I mean, she's amazing. I think the thing that was fun for me with the podcast and with a lot of the shows I produced too is being a kid of the 80s and being raised on HBO and all those TV shows and stuff is been able to get these reunions and stuff for shows and movies that I just absolutely loved. We did a Better Off Dead live read at the festival 5 or 6 years ago where we had done a couple screenings of the movie because I sort of know Savage Steve Holland, and Savage had we had this idea of maybe we could do a library, and he's like, oh, I have the shooting script, which is very different from what we actually ended up shooting. And I was like, great. Well, if you still have that, which he did, we just did a live read with a bunch of the original cast and then understudies for those who couldn't make it. So John Cusack famously just has disowned that movie for God knows why. So we had John Heder do his part. But we had a bunch of the originals. We had, Kim Darby and Curtis Armstrong and Mendowis and Monique, why is her name? Diane Franklin. And then the rest we just filled with Paul F. Tompkins, Steve Agee, myself, things like that. So things like that to me are super great because I love those movies. I watch them a billion times, and whenever we're able to kind of reunite the cast and crew in some capacity and stuff, and then half the time have them on my podcast back in the day too was always a thrill.
This all writes itself.
Yep.
Are there any comedy styles or acting styles that you would like to do in the future that you haven't necessarily done yet or had a chance to?
Oh gosh. I mean, obviously I do a lot of comedic work, only a little bit of dramatic work. So I'd be happy to do more of that. I did come up as an actor doing a lot of theater and stuff too. And obviously I lean into comedy because that's where my main talent is, but I'm a decent dramatic actor as well. So occasionally I get cast in those parts, and those are fun to do.
Ryan Murphy, man, you keep recasting this dude. Can you let him have his own show?
I know, right? I keep showing I'm in that universe. Because I was cut out of 911 because they had cut this little side thing because the tone was off, because it had just come off of this very dramatic moment, and then it was a bunch of the crew talking about the craziest things they've done for bullets and things, and I don't know, it was a goofy thing, and so I'm a doctor in that where we're having to extract a gun from somebody's backside. But it was really silly and fun, but that, they cut that whole segment just because.
I've had pals do that too. They want to be on a show like NCIS or something. I'm like, you're not going to be seen. You might vaguely be seen for less than 5 seconds in the background, but you're not going to be seen, guys. It's just not that kind of show. Like Star Trek or wherever, where you can just be an alien in the background. It's not that. It's the practice is all changed up significantly in recent years. They shoot quick.
Yeah, they really do. God, I can't imagine going through all the creature prosthetics to be an alien and then just walking in the background. That would make me crazy.
Yeah, that's a fair point too. I would see people get all excited about that. It's you do realize there's going to be 3 hours where you're not doing anything and you're getting dressed up. So you better really want to do this before you say yes to that instead of, yeah, not sure.
Yeah, because I'm moderately claustrophobic in that the idea of having going through 3 hours of makeup to put it on and take it off, and having it cover up stuff, like that just freaks me out. Not to say I wouldn't do it if the right part rolled around.
Yes, guys, don't take this. He's not decasting himself. He's just saying a critique.
It's a little scary. But yeah, I mean, it's been fun being able to get back into acting, because I had a bit of a pause where like I just was just mostly focusing on comedy and the festival and stuff, and I didn't really need to act anymore. I was making my living doing the other stuff. So even though I was technically still doing it, I really wasn't putting any time or energy into it. And then a couple of years back, I was just like, I just maybe start doing this better and more. And then I started kind of getting cast and stuff again, and been doing a couple series every year, a little bit parts here and there. So it's been fun.
Very sweet. Are there any other comedians who you have yet to work with that you've still been trying to option some projects with?
I mean, I'm basically, Albert Brooks is my hero. We've not managed to get him to the festival, mostly because he's just not interested in looking back. So like the idea of him just being in conversation, talking about his career makes him uncomfortable and stuff. So it's just hard to like get him excited about doing something. So we've had our talks with his manager Herb and him a little bit and stuff, and I think one day we'll get him to come and do something. We just haven't found that thing yet. So he's kind of the one that's like I'm chomping at the bit to get to the festival. But that I think it just
needs some rewording because he's just so close to it.
Yeah, I just don't know what it's going to be. We thought maybe if there's something else for a close friend that we were doing, that maybe he'd come and participate in something like that.
Comedy for charity.
Right. Or he's not the focus or something. But yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. And obviously I'd love to do something Ted Lasso related at the festival, because that show like really was a beacon of positivity during a very dark time with the pandemic.
I've never seen a show like this take off this large, and it did. Everyone acted like it was successful overnight. It's like it took everyone a while to soak it in and realize, hey, no, this is a typical kind of comedy show.
Yeah, well, the first season is close to perfection. The second, has its issues, but I still enjoyed it. But the first season was just, I watched it very quickly, and then I think there were 5 episodes in when I started watching. So like we kind of watched the first half of the season quickly, and then it was weekly still as they were being released. Initially, and then and I went home and was hanging out with my parents, and I said, you guys should check out the show, and they watched the first episode, and they're like, let's watch another one, and then we just basically over 2 days watched all of it.
Isn't it wild how it's like almost just contagious? You just see people's just faces just slowly light up, and they're looking for all the various Easter eggs and everything. There's a few jokes that are going to go over their head, and you'll have to rewind and tell them that's what that means. Now it's even funnier now that you know what that means.
I mean, my favorite throwaway joke in that first season that just busts me up and like nobody laughs at very often is when he's talking to Jamie Tart outside, and Jamie goes, cheers, and then he goes, night court, back to him. Like
yes.
Just kills me. It's such a throwaway joke, and I think sometimes people don't understand it because, Jamie's just very casually tossing off, cheers, like just not really chewing on that. And then, I don't know. It's such a good, stupid joke.
Did you have to explain the Jack Torrance line?
Right.
I had some pals who work really horror people. They're thinking it's funny. I'm like, no. See, the reference in Nicholson in The Shining. with an axe. Okay.
It's such a good show, and like the positivity is such a wonderful thing, because so many series and stuff are very negative and just a lot of, I don't know, things about tearing people down versus building them up. And this is a show where like we could really use more things like this that build people up instead of tearing them down, because the internet's like Deadwood. There's no sheriff, so it's just terrible. No. It's just constant people like berating each other and tearing each other down, or it's just a bunch of people with pitchforks at this point. Totally.
But I mean, just like you named one of your groups after people making, phobia slurs. Do you think, you can actually gain a lot just from this toxicity and just know how to just diffuse it?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's hard. Like, it's doom scrolling. So there's just so much, like, it's just heavy. It's just hard to keep a positive attitude and stay happy when there's so much craziness happening in the world constantly. And, I don't know. I just feel like something like Ted Lasso is so welcome in that, like, it gave people a chance to kind of exhale and, like, be like, you know what? There are kind people in the world, and we could all benefit more if everybody was kind to each other instead of just trying to tear each other down in order to build yourself up. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me whatsoever.
There's a lack of constructiveness.
Oh, yeah, fully. And, like, I think it's kind of the worst thing in the world is, like, I mean, everybody's always had an opinion, but now there's so many places to put your opinion out there that it's just like, oh my God, because it's generally not a constructive thing. It's like, I hate this thing and I hate you because of this, versus like, this thing is wonderful. Yeah,
you wronged
it's
me
great too. Right.
by
it's
being
just,
in this movie, even though I don't even know you personally and you weren't even a big part of the whole show.
right. Or like I often say, like, no one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans.
Yes.
So, like, it's just constant. Like,
Halloween's a close second behind everyone.
Right.
You want to go through a whole barrage of comments, and Amazon Prime seems to be taking their sweet time, like, seeding out unhelpful comments. You're going to get a bunch of alt-right people calling everyone snowflakes, as well as people who worked on it, upping the vote to where it takes literally almost an hour to just decipher through and see if you even want to spend time watching this movie that has just all this just indecipherable ratings. It's just like, guys, it used to be just, there'd be 5 dishonest reviews, and then eventually you get through 10, 20 reviews that actually give you an idea if you want to spend $5 watching this movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's this whole thing of expectations and entitlement that just makes me crazy. It's like, yeah, that thing, what you didn't enjoy this, or it wasn't tailored to exactly what you wanted it to be. So, but tough shit. Like, you don't have to watch it, or just watch it and move on. But like, the people that spend so much time just tearing down and saying negative, 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 like, unless the thing is like super offensive, like,
yeah,
there's really like no reason to, like, you can't please everybody. Like, if you do something, then they go, oh, fan service. But then if you don't, it's like, it's not what I thought it would be. This is terrible. Like, I don't know. It just makes me crazy. Like, I've enjoyed, Boba Fett and Mandalorian and all that stuff, and the Marvel series and stuff like that too. But I also look at them as like, this is like another episode of something in a universe that you like. You're not going to like them all. You may not like this series. You may not like these episodes. So, fine. But like, don't act like your human rights have been violated.
Yeah.
Because,
they were wrong to take away the character limit too. It used to be harder to post reviews. Like, okay, yeah, but tell us a coherent 2 paragraphs before you post that. Now it's just like, I see 5-second ones. Oh, this was made by a bunch of snowflakes. Too politically correct.
Oh, I mean, like, any episode of any show that has anything that deals with
progressive or
progressive things, it will just be like 1 star. Hollywood, blah blah, and it's just like, oh my God.
It made me think, how dare you, sir?
There's an episode recently of Resident Alien that was like about the women in the cast, and
yes,
people, like, if you go and you look at IMDb, it's like the lowest rated one, and there's like just a bunch of toxic comments, and it's, come on, people.
All the stupid people are breeding.
Yeah,
it's infectious. Well, just to bring it around here for another positive strike. Are there any movies that you're actually kind of anticipating that you just think are just going to take the world by storm and actually kind of do more of this, just reinforcing just positivity?
Ooh, gosh. I don't even know. I can't even think of like what's coming out.
They're keeping a little more secretive. It's like they're keeping some of them in the can for a while until the timing's right, and others like coming out. You don't know exactly when.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, like, this release schedule is all screwy because they can't decide, like, what should go in theaters, what should go in streaming, what should go on both. So that's a thing. I mean, it was definitely hard to find top quality entertainment initially when the stuff was happening during the pandemic, because they were basically unloading a lot of stuff that was sitting on shelves that they didn't have expectations for, that were, of course, kind of terrible.
You think Netflix and Comedy Central might open their doors a bit because they're desperate for content still?
I don't know. I feel like there's way too much content. Like, I've always said that. It's just like, I miss the days of not having choices, because, like, having a handful of networks and cable stations, it meant that shows really were, like, water cooler things. You know, everybody talked about Lost when it was on weekly and stuff. Now it's pretty much you go to a party or you're hanging out with friends. You're like, do you watch this? No. Do you watch that? No. Do you watch this? No. And then you maybe are lucky.
Heard of it. I don't want to see it though.
Right. Like I've heard of it. Yeah. But like, you're lucky if you latch on to something that you both watch and get excited about.
Or, like you say, they go back to the negativity. Oh, it's so good until that one awful season. Fuck you. I love it all. This is like, again, it's just they can't get past it. It's like, okay, no. Stop. let's just have fun.
I mean, my dad said it to me when I was a kid, then I've kind of taken it to heart of like when Star Trek movies are coming out, he's always like, look, I always like them. I love the universe. I love the characters. Some are going to be good. Some are going to be bad. I just look at it as another episode of something I like, and there'll be another episode after it. Like it's just, they're not all going to be great in your opinion, you know, or maybe one thing that works for somebody doesn't work for somebody else, but it's just appreciate it that they're making it. Like that's the thing that makes me crazy about when people get like so upset about these new series and how it's tainting the legacy and blah, blah, blah. It's not. Those movies are still out there. It doesn't take away from the original things that you love so much. They still exist. So either you can enjoy these new versions or just don't watch them, but there's nothing wrong with them trying to keep the universe going. It does not like dilute the initial series and things like that too. And I get it if they do something that's like you feel is like doesn't work in the canon or like takes a beloved character someplace that you don't love. Like I understand that that's frustrating and that's depressing and stuff like that too. But you know, people take it, they have such high expectations that it's just insanity now. Like they
even forget the history, how all of them always had a rough start, you know, battling network executives and trying to find their tone. And again, you know, and like you say, I mean, it's all a matter of which era you were in versus, you know, nowadays with Breaking Bad, where it's like you see a show, but not all the episodes make sense until the last moment, and then you have to go back and make sense of it all. And so, like you say, is like everyone's trying to predict what they want to anticipate, and it's like you can't anticipate it. You don't know until you actually see it. So.
Yeah, and heaven forbid if something takes some time to get there, like if things are like methodically paced, people just like bail on them immediately half the time and like post a negative review. And it's like, you watched the first 20 minutes of the first episode.
Right. The pilot is never going to be the same because that's the pitch to get it on the air to begin with.
Pilots aren't great. Like in general, pilots are just meant to like put the pieces in play.
Found out the hard way. The director wasn't working. The script needed a little more reworking.
And it takes time for shows to figure out what they are. And so, you know, if you look at early seasons of anything, like usually the first couple episodes are kind of painful. And then they get great as they figure out the relationships and what the tone is and where the show goes. It's just hard to initially have that out of the box.
Do you think there's going to be more fan-created content, just building on the Star Trek point?
I mean, there always will be.
Or web series. And
Right. The question is, like, will you get any fans that have actual like Hollywood clout to then be in charge of things? Like, you know, I know like Ryan Johnson gets under fire for his, you know, Last Jedi movie or whatever it was, but he was a Star Wars fan, so I'm sure like it was upsetting to him because he came out of a place of love for the series and things, and not just a director for hire. But
happens with the indie guys is like everyone's like, why are their movies so different? You know, you do this acclaimed indie, now you do this big budget movie. It's like, well, it's a different set. You know, he was playing by his rules, now he's playing by the studio rules, and it's like you say, everyone has to be made a victim or be prosecuted by fans, and this is like, just go back to your oyster. You can politely agree or disagree from afar.
I mean, that's why it's hard if you're given the reins of a beloved franchise. Is it's going to be near impossible to make something that is going to please enough people that you're not going to get, you know, like trashed by it. But also, you just got to let that roll off in a sense too. I've always said that it would be kind of fun to have auteur directors take, you know, a shot at a movie or something like Quentin Tarantino doing a James Bond movie would be rad. But
totally,
you know, but that universe is so like has its playbook, so to speak, and you can't go off of it. Like there was
He doesn't like to play by rules.
Right. I mean, I think it was like Living Daylights, which is actually one of my favorite Bond movies. That's Timothy Dalton. But I think there's a scene where like he goes down sledding on a case for a musical instrument, cello case. But I think at some point, either that movie or one of the ones after it or whatever, they had initially written like him snowboarding for a thing, like not for recreation, but like an action sequence. And like the Broccolis, who like own the thing and have since like the beginning, are like, no, James Bond does not snowboard; he skis.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
Like it's that kind of thing. It's just like it's so guarded and. People were super upset about Daniel Craig getting the part because he was blonde. And then, of course, he ended up being, like, one of the best Bonds. So...
You can break through the prejudice, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that people just, are so quick to judge things before they've even seen it, which is, pretty frustrating. But, I don't know. So
have you been tempted to kind of do something kind of similar to that, that's just kind of experimental in your comedy world, like a 48-hour contest or something kind of the equivalent of Ice Bucket, where just I do a video and you try and do a reaction?
That we haven't, but that's interesting. It can be fun.
Well, it's because you guys are always just and raising the bar, I think, because you're just because I did a bit of improv back in college, and it was just very fascinating to actually just see the professionals do it. And again, you would have other guests there who everyone kind of forgets kind of had a comedy background, but no one was really accustomed to seeing them in that. Like you have Paget Brewster, there's another one who is, everyone forgets she has a comedy background, but everyone's used to seeing her in all these other dramatic roles. So it's just funny how you have to kind of remind people is like, do I have to just show you my resume everywhere I go?
Well, that's what's like, I always think about like Die Hard and Bruce Willis, because when he got that part, everybody was like, what? Bruce Willis can't do action movies. He's a comedian, because he was doing Moonlighting, like he's just like a wisecracking comic. How could he possibly?
Michael Keaton as Batman, the nerve.
Right. And then like Die Hard became the blueprint for most action movies thereafter. And now it's like, I remember like a decade later, people are like, oh, Bruce Willis could do this comedy. People are like, what? He's an action star. He can't do a comedy.
The reverse
of that. So... yeah, that always cracks me up. It's like,
I mean, he's even did action comedies, for goodness sakes. What are you talking about? Red and Whole Nine Yards? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Now he keeps doing these straight-to-video things where he's second build, and he's probably in them for 10 minutes. I think he had like 10 things come out this last year.
I heard a rumor he has dementia, unfortunately. So.
Oh, yeah. I think he just kind of...
I still support all his bad action movies.
I love him. But if you'll meet his quote, so to speak, he'll do it. I think like Nick Cage is that way too, and Chris
Eric Roberts.
And people like that. Yeah, like... I love him on Righteous Gemstones. I don't know if you're watching that. That show.
It's a great show.
It's so good. It's such a good show.
Totally. You might have to pull something like that. Get one of these other just has-been B-movie actors and just have them just show up. Surprise guest.
I mean, that's what's always fun. I mean, like, I think Tarantino like really started that with Pulp Fiction when he kind of brought Travolta back into the limelight, and now
still waiting on that reunion. Michael Madsen had a funny story where he was working with him on a straight-to-streaming movie, Trading Paint, where they were playing race car drivers, and Travolta comes up to him doing the whole, "Hey man, you talked to Quentin yet? Tell him I'd love to be in his next movie." And he's like, You're freaking Travolta. You're an A-lister. I'm a P-lister. What are you talking about? I got no power."
I do love seeing those career swings happen, though, where somebody who used to be like super bankable then isn't for a long time, and then somebody rejuvenates. You could almost say that for Michael Keaton. Like he's, once Birdman kind of started, he got back into the limelight. And I love him. He's one that has almost come to the festival a few times. Like he wants to come. It's just never. He's always been shooting. So hopefully we'll work that out one of these days, because he's hilariously funny too. Like you can find his old stand up online.
Yeah.
And it's great. Like he's so creative.
Did you see the Showtime docu-series, The Comedy Store?
I haven't watched that yet. I've heard it's great though.
They did a good job and they even some other ones showing footage of the likes of Robin Williams, Richard Belzer, Tim Thomerson of all people, just showing where their career trajectories went. And like you say, it's a good job. Documentaries kind of seem to be the way to go, and just kind of remind people is like, this is what they were versus what they are now versus what they can do versus what they want to do.
I mean, Robin, like, that was such a huge loss. And, like, he, especially with San Francisco, like, he's synonymous with San Francisco. Like, he was the guy that would pop up into shows, and, like, he came to the very first SF SketchFest. He came the first year to watch one of the teams and stuff. And I remember, like, my wife was working concessions and, you know, sold him a Diet Coke, and he tipped $5. Like, just a sweet, cool guy. And he would come to shows. He would pop in and do shows unannounced. He did 1 or 2 shows where we actually billed him, but for the most part, he would just, like, pop in and do spots on shows, and people would freak out. And he, and I used to, like, do improv down at Cobb's Comedy Club when it was in the Cannery. We would do, like, once a week. We'd go out at the end of a showcase, and it was, you know, short form games with the owner of the club and stuff. But then for a while there, Robin would pop in and do a set after us. We'd do, like, an hour in this tiny room. And so much so to the point where, like, he was coming in so often, I had seen him, like, a dozen times, where, like, I remember one time I was just, like, having, you know, some beers with my team afterwards, and we're sitting on the other side of a door having this drink, and Robin's in the other room doing another set. And I'm like, when did I get to a point where, like, I've seen him so much recently that I would rather sit here and have a beer right now with my friends than watch Robin on the other side of this thing. But he was so kind and so nice and so encouraging of up-and-coming comics, too. He would always take people aside when he saw them have a good set and, you know, heap praise upon them. And just, like, such a good, wonderful human being.
I've heard the same kind of stuff. Just very inspirational guy, and in the best possible way. And I have to remind people, is like, hey, stop focusing on how we lost him so young. He doesn't want you to remember him that way. He wants you to remind you of how you can just keep breaking barriers, both comedically and dramatically. And I'm glad you got to meet him.
Another one of those things where, like, you know, a comedic actor becomes a good dramatic actor, and people are shocked. You know, like Jim Carrey did that, and a bunch of others. So
it's like we got to remind people what everyone can do.
It's like the Olivier quote: "Dying is easy, comedy is hard."
For Olivier.
Yep. So just two different beasts.
Very nice, very nice. It's been just such a delight just having you on here. So if you're not picking any other comedy mastermind in the world like David E. Kelley or Chuck Lorre, I guess, yeah, we'll expect some other surprises from you in the future.
I'm sure I'll keep doing stuff that's fun and definitely different. That's what the festival aims to do, is, you know, focus on obviously what's going on in comedy right then, but what's coming next, and finding interesting, unique shows that aren't being done other places. We always try to do that.
Totally. There's no shortage of movies. There's no shortage of gags and scenarios. The sky's the limit.
Very true. Very true.
Well, excellent. But dynamite time talking to you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
We'll return after these messages.
JURS Podcast is proud to promote AutoCorrect, an independent film company with experienced industry professionals who can serve all your film industry needs. They include self-tapes, voice actor recordings, demo reel editing, script revisions, headshots, and much more. They're Actor Correct at your request. Book them on Instagram.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All, sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of it.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little history doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was going to be a rough
How did you watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
Greetings, friends. My name is Dean Legiro, and I'm the host of the 3324 podcast. I invite you to join me and my lifelong friend Eric Kuber to come with us as we discuss the music and movies that shaped our life. Each week, we'll pick an album or film that we really connect to, and not only give you some great info and trivia, but also discuss, debate, and celebrate what it means to us and the journey it took us on. We also look forward to hearing from you and giving us some of your picks for us to check out and discuss. I think it'll be a really fun experience, so come along with us for the ride. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider and at 3324.buzzsprout.com. Thanks for your time, and welcome to the 3324 family.
It's time, let's check our queue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. With a one-liner plot, holes of gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up